Welcome to the Know, I'm Ashley. Hey guys, Game Boy Classic is the next big thing. You thought it was going to be Nintendo 64 next? Nah, maybe the Game Boy Classic, actually. Well, that's the speculation going around online anyway, fueled by a recent Nintendo trademark filing. Apparently, the company filed a Japanese trademark last month for a Game Boy product in the household video games category. They also included an image of a Game Boy as well. No telling what this means. After all, the company did already try the Game Boy Micro, although to be fair, that re-release didn't come with a bunch of preloaded software. Not sure what the demand would be for only original Game Boy games, but you never really know with Nintendo. They also thought that the NES Classic wouldn't do well. Score one for the little guys. After a couple weeks of making their voices heard, it looks like FIFA fans got EA to listen to them over the company's decision to remove a popular game mode. No, they did not take out the microtransactions, they took out something else. When FIFA 18 first launched, quite a few gamers out there were upset by the absence of guest play in Ultimate Team mode, which allowed two players to play on the same console together against others online. Apparently, EA removed guest play in favor of balance, since it meant two players at home could team up against one person online, but that still didn't sit well with players who've been demanding that EA bring it back in various ways since the game released. Because of all that, EA decided to change their mind. The publisher wrote, "We have heard your feedback about guest functionality in FIFA Ultimate Team Online Season and FIFA Ultimate Team Online Draft, and are happy to announce that we have added this functionality back into FIFA 18, PS4, Xbox One, and PC effective immediately. So hey, grab a friend, go unleash some football on a bunch of strangers." Yes, football. You're welcome, world. We've got some of the earliest figures for the SNES Classic, and as expected, it's already on pace to outsell last year's NES Classic, which makes sense since they sold all the way out. They sold as many as they had, and they promised they'd make more this time, so math. Nintendo's newest mini console moved to 368,000 units just in its first 4 days in Japan, according to some numbers published by Famitsu. If you're wondering how that stacks up to the NES Classic, with that console sold through 262,000 units in its first days at retail. So that's quite the jump. We don't have figures for any other regions around the world just yet, but it makes sense that Nintendo would sell more this time around because, well, they made more. If you're still on the hunt for your own SNES Classic, it looks like GameStop and sister site ThinkGeek will be getting the consoles back in stock temporarily, no doubt, this week. Also, remember to check sites like, or stores like Toys R Us. No one ever thinks of Toys R Us, but they usually have stuff. Super Mario Odyssey isn't out for another couple of weeks, but already some of the first print impressions are starting to trickle out online. Edge Magazine's review has been spotted in the wild by Nintendo Everything, who reports that Edge gave Super Mario Odyssey a 10 out of 10 score, making Odyssey 20th perfect score they've ever handed out. Based on the snapshot provided, it seems like Edge's final ruling is that Super Mario Odyssey takes some big risks with the series, which pay off handsomely. That's pretty good news for Mario, and if you're having shades of deja vu, well, the same thing did happen with Breath of the Wild earlier this year. So time will tell if Odyssey is ultimately reviewed as well as that game, and if a bunch of people get mad saying, no, it shouldn't be reviewed that high, and go on places like Metacritic and give it a 0 because that's what it deserves. Activision stock has been downgraded for the first time in a long time this week, and it has nothing to do with Destiny 2 or the upcoming Call of Duty World War II or people being mad. It's actually about Overwatch League. Analysts at financial firm Cowen & Company advised investors to sell on Activision for the first time in 9 years this week, amid concerns that the Overwatch League will add a lot of costs to Activision's bottom line without much significant revenue in 2018. They also say they believe Activision's projected growth next year is much too high. They're being way too optimistic, guys. This follows almost a decade of the company's stock being ranked in the outperform category, jumping 600% in value in that same time frame. The firm is also predicting that Activision will return to the Black Ops well in Call of Duty, guesstimating that Black Ops 4 will be next year's entry in the franchise, so we'll see about that. I thought that was all wrapped up, but money talks. The publisher of a Japanese RPG is apologizing for its bad English localization and says they're gonna fix it. The game in question, Ys 8 Lacrimosa Dona, released last month in North America and Europe, and reviewers and fans quickly noticed some pretty glaring poor translations in the game, like an area called Big Hole. But it went further than that. One Twitter user noticed that descriptions of items in the game were mixed up, like they weren't for the right items, which is never great if you're in the heat of battle and you need what you need. In a statement to GameSpot, Takuro Yamashita, the CEO of NIS America, which published the game outside of Japan, said, "We will have a new translator and editor go over the entire localization to fix grammatical errors, typos, inconsistencies, and also to take a fresh look at the dialogue and characterizations." So good for them, I like it, but maybe just leave Big Hole. Yes, it's stupid, but I like it. It's funny. It's an awesome name. Thumbs up on that one. Well, good news if you've been wanting to get into VR but haven't wanted to pay the entry fee, because hey, it's been pricey. Well, VR is getting quite a bit cheaper. Facebook announced today that Oculus is coming out with a stripped down, more affordable version of the Oculus Rift. It's a standalone headset called the Oculus Go, and it's going to release early next year for $200, which is quite a bit less than the now permanent $400 Rift. Mark Zuckerberg announced the headset at the Oculus Connect conference, saying that it's part of his goal to getting 1 billion people into VR. The Oculus Go won't have some features like inside-out tracking or fully tracked motion controllers, but it will allow VR without having to be plugged into a phone or a computer, which is a pretty big deal, at least for usability, and its controller is similar to the Gear VR's remote. It's not going to launch until early next year, but developers are going to be getting development kits for the new device next month. The final season of Game of Thrones is gonna start filming pretty soon, according to none other than Davos Seaworth himself. He's the best. He just really is. Honestly, Davos is like one of the best characters in the show. He's doomed. He's gotta be, right? The actor, Liam Cunningham, said recently at New York Comic Con that he kind of got the scripts for the final season and that shooting would begin in the coming weeks. But we don't have a release date yet for the last season. It's possible we might not see it until 2019. We do know that season 8 will have a total of 6 episodes, and this last season was 7. So if you thought that we had a breakneck pace already, it's just gonna get faster. So anyway, keep waiting patiently, or as patiently as you can, Game of Thrones fans. Even if you have to wait until 2019, the show's still gonna wrap up way sooner than the books. If you're lucky, we'll get a new book before we get a new season, huh? Yeah? Look, here's hoping. Disney's launching a new movie download service, and a lot of big studios are jumping on board because, you know, it's Disney. The service, which is called Movies Anywhere, lets consumers buy movies and store them in a digital locker to access on their devices, and it's getting support from some of the biggest studios. 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, and Universal Pictures are all joining up after previously supporting a rival service called Ultraviolet, according to Bloomberg. This service is an effort to try and boost content sales after DVD sales fell off and kind of a disappointing year so far at the box office. So we could get an official announcement about it this week. Either way, looks like a very interesting way. Hollywood is clearly trying to figure out what to do next with movie distribution. Did Google acquire Apple? Oh, that's crazy headlines. Well, it's because it's not a real news story. It was picked up by Dow Jones, their news service, yesterday, and very briefly shocked the entire tech world before the company admitted it had been duped. The fake story claimed that Google was buying Apple for $9 billion and that Steve Jobs personally approved the deal in his will. Dow Jones quickly retracted the story, and it doesn't look like either company's stock was affected, probably because no one believed a story where Apple was only sold for $9 billion. I mean, that's less than WhatsApp, right? Come on, they probably have that much in petty cash at the office. Anyway, it seems like everything requires a monthly subscription these days, but now it's coming to cars. Yeah, that's the thing. Porsche is starting a Netflix-like pilot program in Atlanta where for $2,000 a month, you can access some of their sports cars and SUVs. That monthly fee gets you access to cars like the 718 Boxster, the 718 Cayman S, and 6 other Porsche models, and there's even a more expensive $3,000 per month option where you can drive even more models. We've seen this done before by a couple of other car companies. Volkswagen operates a similar-ish service in San Francisco, but Porsche seems to be the first high-end car brand to do something like this. They say they'll expand the program to other cities if it's a hit in Atlanta. So if you ever wanted to pretend like you own a Porsche, now's your chance. Just get you to Atlanta. Now, we all saw this coming, but Microsoft made it official recently. The Windows Phone is officially done. Microsoft's Joe Belfiore said in some recent tweets that the company isn't developing any new features or hardware for Windows 10 Mobile, just bug fixes and security updates for existing users. You might remember that Windows Phone launched several years ago as a third alternative to the dominant Android and iOS platforms, but it never really took off, and Microsoft ended up laying off thousands of people in the phone business last year. So the writing was kind of on the wall. The big trouble with Windows Phone, it was a pretty great operating system, but developers never got on board. There just weren't enough Windows Phone users to make it worth their while, so they didn't. And then there was no reason to buy a phone because you couldn't get Instagram on it. It's for serious. I had one for years. There was no Instagram. It was weird. There was like, here's something like Instagram, but it's not, and so I jumped ship. Anyway, Microsoft said it's going to continue to support Windows 10 customers who want to use Android and iOS on their phones, so that's going to be the direction moving forward. Oh, and Belfiore even admitted that he personally has switched to Android. So, yeah, RIP Windows Phone. Say hello to Nokia and BlackBerry when you get to phone heaven. That's the news for this roundup. Let us know what you think of all these stories in the comments down below. To make sure you get news from every corner of the internet every weekday, like this video. If you're new around here, subscribe to the know. The publisher wrote, "We have heard your feedback about guest functionality in FIFA Ultimate Team." Okay. Access some of their sports cars and SUVs. That monthly fee gets you access to cars like the 718 Boxstar. It's a whole new model.